AITA for telling my best friend I will never give birth to his child. So I, 29F, have been best friends with this guy, let's call him Jared 30M, for basically my entire life. We met in school, and from day one we just clicked. We were inseparable, did everything together. He was the first person I ever came out to as someone who struggles with anxiety and depression, and I was the first person he came out to as gay. We've always had this really deep bond. I love him like a brother, and over the years, we've supported each other through thick and thin. When we were about 15, he came up with this idea. He told me that someday, when he got married, he wanted me to be the one to give birth to his child. I remember it so clearly because it honestly shocked me. He explained how, being a man, he couldn't get pregnant, and he didn't want just anyone to be the surrogate. He wanted someone he trusted with his life, and that person was me. At the time, I didn't really know how to respond. It felt so out of left field, but I had just watched a TV show about a woman who gave birth to triplets for her brother and became severely depressed afterward. I was sensitive even back then, and I struggled with mental health issues because of trauma in my childhood, so I immediately told him, no, I can't do that. I explained that I didn't think I was emotionally strong enough to go through with something like that. And I was only 15, barely understanding what surrogacy even meant. But Jared, he didn't take it well. He got mad and didn't talk to me for 2 whole days, which might not seem like a big deal. But for us, we'd never gone more than a few hours without texting or talking. So those 2 days felt like a breakup. Eventually, we made up and things went back to normal. But every now and then, Jared would bring up the topic again. Each time I would tell him no, and each time he would get upset. It started to feel like this endless cycle. I would try to explain over and over that it wasn't about him or his future family. I just couldn't mentally or emotionally handle the thought of being pregnant, let alone carrying someone else's child. But no matter what I said, it felt like he just wouldn't hear me. And then, a few months ago, everything came to a head. Jared recently got engaged to his long-term boyfriend. Of course, I was over the moon for him. They threw this big dinner with friends to celebrate the engagement, and everything was going great until Jared brought up the surrogacy thing. Again, he and his fiancée had been planning their future, and they were serious about starting a family. He turned to me in front of everyone and said something like, "We've talked about it, and we really want you to be the one to carry our child. We'll pay you really well, and we'll cover therapy or anything you need afterward." It felt like the room just stopped. I was so taken aback that he had the nerve to bring it up again, especially in such a public way, that I just snapped. I told him, "Jared, I've told you 1,000 times, I will never give birth to your child. I don't understand why you keep pushing this on me. And if you're so willing to pay someone, find a surrogate who actually wants to do it." He got mad. Again. Except this time, he stormed out of the restaurant, his fiancée trailing after him, and left me sitting there with our friends, all of whom had heard every word. It was incredibly awkward. Most of the women in our friend group were on my side. They agreed that it was unfair and kind of uncomfortable that he kept bringing it up, especially knowing how I feel about it. But some of our other friends, particularly the guys from the LGBTQ+ community, thought I was overreacting. They said it would be a really meaningful thing to do for him, and that maybe I should reconsider. Honestly though, I'm just tired. I love Jared. I do, but I've had this same conversation with him over and over for the past 15 years. He asks, I say no, he gets mad, and then I'm the one who has to either wait for him to come around or make the first move to apologize so we can be friends again. I've always felt like I'm being backed into a corner, like my feelings don't really matter, because this is what Jared wants, and it's not the first time he's acted like that in our friendship. I'm frustrated because I feel like this is a decision about my body, and yet, I'm the one being made to feel guilty for saying no. Jared keeps telling me he trusts me more than anyone else in the world, which is why he wants me to be the one to do it, but honestly, I just don't want to. I've never wanted to, and I'm tired of explaining myself over and over. At the same time, I don't want to lose him as a friend. We've been through so much together, and it hurts that this is something we keep fighting about. But I'm at my breaking point. I don't want to be pressured into doing something I don't want to do, especially something as life-altering as carrying and giving birth to a child, even if it's for someone I care about. The IDEA for putting my foot down once and for all? Or am I overreacting like some of our friends think? Update. After Jared stormed out of the restaurant, the tension in the air was suffocating. No one really knew what to say. I felt embarrassed, but mostly I was angry. Angry that he still didn't get it. Angry that after all these years, my feelings seemed to hold so little weight in his mind. I stayed quiet for a while, just picking at the food left on my plate, even though I wasn't hungry. One of our friends, a guy named Matt, tried to break the silence by saying something like, "Well, you know Jared. He's a bit intense, but he'll come around." I could hear the attempt at reassurance, but it didn't really help. I wasn't sure if Jared would come around this time. It felt like this was becoming a pattern, one I was getting tired of. My friend Sarah, who's been one of my closest confidants aside from Jared, leaned over and whispered, "You were right to say no. He needs to understand your boundaries." I nodded, grateful for her support, but my mind was still racing. Would this blow up the entire friendship? I should probably mention that this isn't the first time Jared has pushed my boundaries. Over the years, there have been moments where I've had to remind him that I'm not just his emotional crutch. I've had my own battles, ones that have left me exhausted at times. Anxiety and depression have been a part of my life for as long as I can remember, and Jared knows that. I've always been open about it because being honest about my mental health is the only way I've managed to keep myself afloat. But sometimes I feel like Jared overlooks that part of me. He's always been the kind of person who sees the world as something that bends to his will, and most of the time he's been able to make things work out the way he wants. I admire that about him. His confidence, his ability to navigate life like it's something that's supposed to go his way. But when it comes to this surrogacy thing, it feels like he's expecting me to mold my life around his plans. The next day, I got a text from him. Just one line. Can we talk? I stared at my phone for a while, debating whether or not to respond. Part of me wanted to just ignore it, to avoid another fight, but I knew that wouldn't help anything. So I replied, and we agreed to meet at his place the next day. I showed up, feeling a mix of dread and determination. I wasn't going to let him bulldoze me into something I didn't want, but I also didn't want to lose one of the most important people in my life. When I walked in, Jared was sitting on the couch, looking tired. His fiancé, James, wasn't there, which I appreciated. This needed to be just between us. Hey, I said softly, sitting down across from him. Hey, he replied, avoiding eye contact. There was a long pause before he finally spoke. I'm sorry I keep bringing it up, he said, his voice low. I've always pictured you being the one to help me start a family. You're my best friend. I trust you more than anyone. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my voice calm. I get that, Jared. I do. But this isn't just about trust. This is about my body, my mental health. You know, I've struggled with anxiety and depression for years. I'm terrified of what something like this would do to me. And I've told you that so many times. I don't understand why you keep asking me to do something I'm not comfortable with. He finally looked up at me, and I could see the frustration in his eyes. But there was something else there too. Sadness, maybe even fear. I don't want some stranger carrying my child. I don't trust anyone else the way I trust you. And I know you've been through a lot, but I thought maybe if we made it easier for you, paid for therapy, took care of everything, you might feel differently. There was again, him thinking he could fix it with money, with promises of help. But it wasn't about that. It was about the emotional toll, the fear of losing myself in the process. Jared, I said slowly, choosing my words carefully, no amount of money or therapy is going to change the fact that I don't want to do this. I can't. You're asking too much of me. He stayed quiet for a moment, his jaw clenched, but then he sighed and leaned back on the couch. I didn't realize it was that deep for you, he admitted, sounding more defeated than angry. I guess I've been so focused on what I want, I didn't stop to think about what it's like for you. That's the thing, I said, feeling a mix of relief and frustration. You never stop to think about it. You're always pushing, always making me feel like I have to be the one to fix things. I can't be that person all the time. Jared looked away, and I could see the weight of my words sinking in. For the first time, it felt like he was really listening. I don't want to lose you, he finally said, his voice barely above a whisper. You're my best friend, but I don't know how to stop wanting this. It's been in my head for so long. I nodded, understanding that this wasn't going to be something he could just switch off. But at the same time, I had to stand my ground. I know you want this, I said gently, but you have to respect that I don't. I love you, Jared. I'll always be here for you in every other way. But this is a boundary I need you to respect. There was another long pause before he finally nodded. Okay, he said softly. I get it now. I'll stop asking. And for the first time in years, it felt like a weight had been lifted. I wasn't sure if things would ever be exactly the same between us, but at least he understood. At least he finally saw that this wasn't something I could just be talked into. We sat there for a while, not saying much, but it felt like we were slowly rebuilding something. It wasn't going to be easy, and I wasn't entirely sure if our friendship would survive this in the long run, but at least for now, there was some kind of peace between us. I left his place feeling emotionally drained, but also relieved. For once, I didn't have to be the one to apologize or make things right. I'd set my boundary, and Jared had finally accepted it. In the days that followed, we didn't talk much. It wasn't awkward, but we both needed space to process everything. I knew this wasn't the end of the story, though. Friendships that have lasted this long don't just end over one argument. But I also knew that things would be different moving forward. I wasn't going to let myself be put in a position where I had to sacrifice my well-being for someone else's dream. Not even for my best friend. In the end, I don't know if I'm the asshole. Maybe I am for getting angry or for not being more patient with Jared. But I also know that I have to take care of myself first. And if that makes me the bad guy in someone's eyes, then so be it.